Are you thinking of driving a taxi or private hire car? People often test the water by driving for someone already in the business. But before they can take you on, you need a licence for one of the zones within South Lanarkshire. Hamilton, East Kilbride, which includes the Straven area, Rutherglen and Cambuslang, or Clydesdale. Taxis, private hire cars and their drivers have different licences. Taxis can be hackney cabs or similar purpose-built taxis, saloon-type cars or people carriers. What distinguishes a taxi is its taxi sign on its roof. Taxis can pick up people who wave them down in the street. They can wait for customers in a taxi rank or respond to calls. Private hire cars need to be pre-booked. They can't be waved down or sit in a rank, and they don't have a taxi sign. They can only pick up people who have booked them in advance. You can apply for your licence online via the council's website. When you have lodged your application and supporting documents for a taxi driver licence or private hire car driver licence, you must then book an online appointment to sit a route test. The route test is 25 multiple choice questions and you need to get at least 20 right. Most routes are in the zone you are applying to operate in, but main routes into other areas will also be included. When you're completing your online form, you have to let us know about any convictions you have had. You must also advise us of any right to work in the UK or medical issues you have. Once we have your application, there's a 28-day period for objections before we can process it. If you have no convictions, right to work in the UK or medical issues, and all the paperwork is in order, we will approve your application and it can be issued following the 28-day objection period, usually within the next 10 working days. If you have any convictions, right to work in the UK or medical issues, or there are objections, for example from the police, the decision can take a bit longer, as your application may be referred to the licensing committee. Taxi and private hire car driver licences usually last for 3 years, but sometimes the committee can issue them for a shorter period. If you stop using your taxi or private hire car driver licence, for example, if the car you are driving is off the road, it must be returned to the licensing office for safekeeping. Your licence can be kept until the expiry date of the licence. An operator's licence for a taxi or private hire car can be handed in for safekeeping for a maximum of 3 months. If it's not picked up during that time, the licence will be deemed surrendered, which means the licence will lapse. If you decide this is the business for you and you want to run your own car as a taxi or private hire car, here are the things you should know. There are limits in the number of taxi licences available in zones in South Lanarkshire, with the exception of Clydesdale, which has no limit. To check if there are any taxi licences available within the zone you propose to operate in, you should contact the licensing office. If you have a suitable car, you can apply for a private hire car operator's licence, as there are currently no limits on this type of licence. There is a list of approved vehicles that meet our criteria for taxis and private hire cars. This takes into account the size of the vehicle and its age. You can apply for a taxi or private hire car licence for saloon-type cars and people carriers that are less than 7 years old, and they can remain licensed until they are 12 years old. Hackney cabs or similar purpose-built taxis can be put on a licensed taxi up to an age limit of 7 years and can stay on indefinitely. Taxis and private hire cars can be licensed for between 4 and 8 passengers. Your car needs to be checked at our fleet service depot at Hamilton International Technology Park before you're issued a taxi licence or private hire car operator's licence. This test is done every year, even on new cars. Vehicles over 5 years old are also subject to a 6-month vehicle test, which takes place about 6 months after the main test. For hackney cabs and other purpose-built taxis, a 6-monthly test is required after 7 years. The tests are similar to an MOT, but include more cosmetic things to ensure the car has a good standard of interior and exterior. If you need an MOT, it's a good idea to get this done at the same time as your compliance test. Taxis must have meters, and these are checked as part of the compliance test too. Private hire cars don't all have meters, but if they do, these are also tested. Before you collect your taxi or private hire car driver's badge, you need to take certain documents, such as insurance to operate as a taxi or private hire car driver for the vehicle you'll drive, along to the licensing office within Fleet Services. There is one more licence associated with taxis and private hire cars, Where a company with more than 3 cars takes bookings, they need a booking office licence. If you have any other inquiries about taxi or private hire car licensing, please email licensing@southlanarkshire.gov.uk or check out the information in the licensing section of the Council's website www.southlanarkshire.gov.uk.